Hello, fellow kids. Now, the Greeks, the ancient Greeks, not the current ones, those ones that went bankrupt and fucked the EU, the ancient Greeks, the good ones, they had a concept called the transcendentals. And these were properties of being, such as the good, the beautiful, the true. Now, there are good people who work at esports pools. They've applied for all the correct licenses. They don't offer gambling or fancy esports services in countries where they're not allowed to. They have a beautiful feature set on their website. They have all types of different contests. They have different types of small bets and different fun wagers you can make there. And it's true that you can bet on all kinds of competition across League of Legends, CSGO, Dota 2, Overwatch. Now, there are a lot of bad orgs in betting, but a good one is esports pools. Now, you've heard the typical story, as I describe it now, many times before if you've been around in esports. So it goes like this. Shady organization exists where they're shady because they have a track record or a history of paying late, not paying at all, mistreating their players, not fulfilling promises, including promises that were actually contracted, sometimes just disappearing from the scene entirely, but then returning again and again with sometimes the same ownership, but sometimes there's some fuckery of like who actually owns it and how they can get around not paying people. And yet, the story always goes, new players still join this team. Later on, they get ripped off or mistreated in some way. And they complain, they make the story public, and people say, why do these bad orgs still exist? Or why would anyone sign for an org like that? If it was me, I'd check the contract, or I'd make sure that this was way X or it was way Y, and I'd never sign otherwise. So you think recently of Denial in CSGO. They had an issue where they haven't paid their players. You think of MYM, Meet Your Makers in League of Legends, where someone actually threatened to take a player's house, his mother's house back in Poland. You think of Tainted Minds over in Australasia, where they apparently had terrible conditions for their team. Now, as with most problems, and when I say that, I mean problems, like real issues, there's not a clear solution. Hence why it hasn't just been fixed and hasn't gone away, and why it continues to remain a problem. But part of the reason why there is no clear solution is it's actually quite a nuanced matter, and actually these bad orgs do fulfill a role within the scene that is necessary and actually provide some kind of value to the scene, as counterintuitive as that might seem. And also, when people use this to tie into a typical complaint, which is, oh, it's bloody esports, isn't it? You know, it's too young as an industry. We haven't got the proper oversights. We haven't got the proper sort of like ombudsmen and people who will like, you know, regulate the industry and make sure it's all legit. No. Because these problems exist in sports, entertainment industry, no matter how big the industry is, these problems exist there, but it's just on a lower level, and I think that's where the nuance is being lost. So here's the very simple reason as to why bad orgs do exist, will continue to exist, and will probably never go away. So first and foremost is because of this. Because there are desperate and unknown players. That might sound like, what does that mean? Well, we can all agree there will always be desperate players who can't get a better team or are in a bad position in their career, or unknown players who just haven't had a break yet, haven't got that chance yet, haven't been able to prove themselves to a better team. These types of people will always exist. So if these people could join a bigger and better team, organization, they would. They would take those better offers for more money, more prestige, more security. They would. But because they can't, they are desperate. And so as the old adage goes, beggars can't be choosers. So they have to take whatever is available to them to further their career, to give themselves another stepping stone to potentially make it to a better org and go through kind of the food cycle, the food chain of how esports works. So often when they join this bad org, it is the best opportunity they have found at this time. At this time and this place in their career. Sure, every now and then, it might be that they actually were greedy and they overlooked what was actually a better offer, a more prestigious or more secure org with less of a track record of bad things, just because the dollar amount they were promised from this other org was higher. Even so, that is very rarely going to be the standard situation that happens in this case. Oftentimes, players are young. So, you know what? They're quite impressionable, so they've heard the bad stories before. But along comes someone who's going to con them, and if someone's going to con them, someone's going to rip them off, someone's not going to deliver what they promise. Usually, The primary prerequisite for that is you got to have a bit of charisma about you. You got to be able to talk to people. You got to be able to convince them. No, don't worry about the past. Like, trust me now. Here's some reasons why. Don't I seem like a good guy? You're a young person, so if I just show authority and I seem like I know what I'm talking about and I explain away with some vague sophistry what happened before, you're going to kind of give me the benefit of the doubt, and you're already desperate. You need this chance. You just hope it works out, just as I hope I can pay you, and I'm not going to have to rip you off. But we're both open here, and guess what? You're not the best player in the world. I can't afford the best player in the world. I've got to kind of go down to your level to get you as well. We're both taking a risk here, and we might both, in some ways, fuck each other over in the end. But that's kind of where we both are right now in the situation. We're both desperate, or we're both semi-unknown or newer than others. So beggars can't be choosers in either case. This is the key point I want to make, okay? Players who are in these orgs benefit from being in them. That's something I feel like gets ignored because they get ripped off. And yeah, I agree, it's horrible that they get ripped off. But because these players are in a bad situation, they're either too new, so no one knows them or wants to take a chance on them. They're down on their luck, like they've been in a slump of form, no one wants to take a risk on them. Or they're washed up and no one on the top wants them anymore. That just being in an org and getting to play in leagues, play with other players of their level, go to events and potentially get paid is worth it. They benefit from that. And sometimes even when they're in a bad org like this, it doesn't work out. They don't get paid, they get screwed. They show themselves to be good enough and they get to go to a better org after this and actually it all works out for them. So they did benefit from being in that org. They got a platform from which to perform and to play, and maybe they got some of the money and some of the things they were promised and not all of them, and therefore it's still a step along their career some way. If these were rather the big orgs, like it was some huge team that's very, very good that was doing this, then you know what? It wouldn't be these small little issues where you're like, why do people sign with these orgs? Because we would expose them, we would to some degree run them out of the scene, we would ensure they became the bad orgs, the smaller ones, and had to battle their way back up by being legit. So people would have the choice of like, oh, well, I know that, so I won't join this one. I've got a lot of options, so I'll go and join here. It's not those top players who were doing this and getting ripped off in most cases. There are very rare examples like Team Secret in Dota 2. And if you ever know the backstory of that, those players, to some degree, had it coming because they thought they could just join an org that would pay them way more than the others, let them keep all the prize money, give them all these benefits. And yet, how was that org ever going to make money? And then they're surprised that because it was at the whim of some rich guy, one day he was just like, yeah, I'm not paying you anymore. Oh, well, fucking hell, who could have seen that coming, right? But anyway, that's a side topic, not to do with this video, not even technically a bad org in some sense. Now, here's the point I want to make. Because remember, I said it's not just the infancy of esports that causes this to exist and be a problem. Because this exists in the entertainment industry. It's just what confuses people is someone, I forget, a few years back, might have been Sir Scoots, made a very shrewd point about esports organizations, the Fanatics, the Cloud9s of the world. It's that until the point now where they're getting franchising, they weren't really teams in a sense because they didn't have any ownership stake in the leagues. You could just leave their team and go somewhere else. They couldn't even make you really on a contract. Basically what they were kind of like agents. They just brought sponsors to you, the players, as part of the team and did deals on your behalf so they got some of the money and then you got some of the money, and they were sort of just sponsorship. They were sort of just agents. That's all they really did in terms of their job. And they managed your likeness rights. So what's funny is you look in the world of agents and you find this exists to this day in the biggest entertainment and sports industries in the world, and even to very high level people when they have a lot of early success. So we're talking about bad agents now, not bad organizations. So these exist exactly in the sports world. They exist in acting, movies, music, all those entertainment industries. What happens is these are agents who take a chance on you when you're in a desperate or unknown situation. You're a nobody right now, or you're just starting out and you really need some promotion and you don't have any contacts with anyone to get bookings or any kind of gigs or any kind of sponsorships. So the reason why we know you're in that position, if you start with a bad agent, is because otherwise you'd sign with a better agent. They'd want you, you'd want them, you'd do the deal there, or you could do some of these things yourself if you already had some connections and you wouldn't need to start with the bad agent. You can't, therefore you need this guy. Now, that puts you in a position where you're vulnerable. He has all the leverage. And so guess what? It's not that they offer nothing. They do have qualities that might be able to help you, might have a bit of nous about them, might know some people in the industry, might know even some little tips for how to improve yourself. They might even have the connections to help you early on to book you or whatnot. Now, yes, they aren't the best. We've explained why they aren't and logically why they wouldn't be in a market system, hence why they're dealing with you. You are a fucking nobody. Yes, 2 years from now, maybe your albums sell millions, you're one of the best comedians, and now you're stuck in this contract. This is bullshit. I'm making loads and he's taking loads from it. He doesn't manage me properly and he's not as good as the best agents. Yeah. Because when he started, you were nobody. Hence why you were willing to work with this guy. So they took a chance on you in exchange for probably giving you a shitty contract where they get way too much percentage of it, probably not giving you the maximum attention, especially until you start to make it. But you know what? In time, when you become successful, thanks to the platform and the boost that they gave you and your work with them, you become successful enough, you become a known quantity. Now you move up the ladder, and they start to use you. They start to take more money from you. They start to take too much of your profits. They start to be perhaps predatory in the way they deal with you because you used them initially when you actually had very little to offer them. That's when you used them, and now they're using you on the other end of the equation. So you know what? You move up and become successful. You eventually leave your contract. You eventually get a better agent. The cycle continues. Someone on the way down gets them, or someone on the way up gets them. It's the same principle. It's just that it's agents in the entertainment industry or sports world, and it's organizations in esports.
He's definitely brutal. He's always savage, and you're definitely getting wrecked.